you don't get this very often, but one of the really interesting things that I get to do occasionally is to visit people who know that they're dying.
Wow.
And they might be a week away or a couple of days away from death. And you're asked to go because they want to see you and they want to talk to you about their funeral. And it's very, very powerful to meet this person knowing that they are literally on death's doorstep. And you meet them and talk to them and what do you want me to do? And I did a service for an Indigenous lady a couple of years ago now, and her family was there. And I'll never forget this because she said to her sister, she said, "Last night in my dreams I was walking with the ancestors." And it was really...
That's crazy. Yeah, wow.
It was really powerful, yeah.
Hi, you're listening to Parting, a podcast series about grief, death and dying. My name is Melody, and I'm your host for this episode, where the theme is elders. So first, we want to pay respects to our elders and honour our ancestors, and acknowledge that the stories you will hear today were recorded on the homelands of the Dharawal, Ilauri and Wadi peoples. In this episode, you will get a bunch of different kinds of stories about when people who are older die. Story 1, The World Breathing, where Dan's pop gives him a job to do. Story 2, Prepared, where we talk about what we can do to change a culture. Story 3, Stars, where we uncover some amazing, mysterious thoughts. So who are we? We are a group of young people who happen to live in these places that are considered disadvantaged. Our first story is a fictional one, almost a poem really, and it's told today by Jay. Story 1, The World Breathing.
Papa wasn't an indoors kind of guy. When he got sick, I bought him cups of tea and morning coffee biscuits and sat on his bed. He would look out the window and say, "Hear that?" It was the sound of the waves of the beach in the distance. "It's the world breathing," he said. "In and out." When he was dying, everyone came. They sat with him and held his hand. They told stories and got upset and laughed. Mostly he was asleep, but one time he woke up and talked to everyone. To me he said, "Keep the window open, will you, Dan? I want to hear the world breathing." Night came. Mum and Auntie Chris kept closing the window. They said it was getting cold, but I kept on opening it again when they weren't looking. Auntie Chris kept on saying that maybe I should be somewhere else. But Mum said that Papa and I were so close that I should be there. So I stayed. It was nearly my bedtime. They all stepped out to make a cup of tea. Papa's breath was rattling. Then he breathed in and out 3 times quickly. And then he stopped. The room was quiet. I looked at him. He wasn't there. But through the window, a wave swept up on the shore from far away. "I can hear the world breathing, Papa," I said. And I went and got Mum.
If you have listened to episode 1 of Parting, you would have met Jenny Briscoe from Tender Funerals, who was on one of our podcast story steering groups. It was her idea about keeping the window open that helped us create The World Breathing. Here she is talking about it.
Look, I think the other thing that's really important for people to know, I mean, in traditional societies they would say it's the last job of the grandparents to teach the children about death, because those children are going to have to look after their own parents. So in a way, that eldership role, and that story is a demonstration of the eldership role. There's 2 things in that story. One is the grandfather giving the boy a job. so that he feels that he's helpful. The other thing is that really, when you know you're going to die, you might want to think about what your dying process is. And for me, it would always be about having a window open.
So what would happen if people were more prepared to talk about death? Jenny is joined in our next story by Steve Parsons, a funeral celebrant, and also Lily, Phil and Sharif from our crew. Story 2, Prepared.
Yeah, and then I met a bloke at Unanderra, he a lovely old guy, but he knew he was going. And he was hilarious because he just kept cracking jokes and, he knew it was coming. And he said, oh, look, I know it's going to happen, but, I have a good life. He was resigned to the fact. And he certainly wasn't happy about it, but he was taking it in a really interesting way and manner, light-hearted manner. But it is fascinating when you walk into a room and you sit down and you know that in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a funeral service for this person.
It sounds so confronting, but heartwarming at the same time.
It is, yeah. It is, yeah.
There's stories that people will tell, in traditional societies where people didn't necessarily get sick. They just knew they were going to die, and they would go to like a death lodge and they would say, I'm going to die, and then people would come and they would do their business. They would finish their business with those people. They would come and say goodbye and say what they needed to say, do what they needed to do, and then they would die. Death hasn't always been this medicalised thing. And people have been in the past, and I think still now, people know when they're dying. They know.
We don't talk to our elders enough about, tell me about your life. And you hear this so often. People say, I never asked mum or dad or pop or grandpa or ma. I never asked them about their life. I didn't write it down. We've got all the equipment today. And I see it sometimes where families will just put the record on their iPhone and talk to their grandparents or their parents and tell us, what was it like when you were growing up, and tell me the stories. And we don't do it enough. We should, because when they're gone, it's too late.
Yeah, you don't have anything.
It's too late.
Yeah.
There was an old bloke, an old butcher in Wollongong that I'd known for 50 years who died recently. And his son kept saying, we're going to sit Dad down and we're going to get him to tell the stories. We're going to sit any day now. We're going to do that. And he said to me, you should come and talk to him and you can ask. And we didn't. And in the end, he got Alzheimer's and he couldn't remember. And it was too late. But that's a really good thing to do, I think. Talk to your elders and write the stories down or record the stories. More of us should do that.
Why do we not do it?
I think we're frightened to death. Yeah. Again, we've locked it in the other room. Put it in there and leave it there. We don't let it out. We don't.
Even to the point of going, because it's fascinating, isn't it? Just thinking about it. Even to the point of going, if we talk about the past, if we talk about your life, it seems like we're asking you. We're trying to capture it before you die. We won't talk about it because that has death in the back part of that conversation.
It is part of the conversation. Yeah.
It would be better if we just went, it's part of the conversation, it's okay.
It also links you to your family and how important family is, and that underlying importance of parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, is that timeline. And we talk about that at funerals. We come together and we talk about, this man was 7th generation, whatever, a carpenter, or, we talk about the family links and ties that hold families together. It's the glue that holds families together. And we talk about that at funerals. We don't talk about it very often at other times.
No.
Do we?
No.
No, it's just not something that's discussed.
Yeah.
Michael Barbato, who is one of the world's good people, he's a ex-palliative care doctor, he says that death is our last opportunity for healing. And I think it's, if we're conscious of it, we can do what we want to do with it and not just have it come upon us. And if you have grandparents and elders who are not afraid and who can talk to you and who you're not afraid to talk to is the other thing, because they want to talk about it and nobody will talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, no, don't say that, Mum, you're never going to die. It's like, Mum's like, I am going to die. Okay, we can't talk about it. So I think if we all will get involved in that conversation or try and work our way through that, then we can have those things are richer for us, and we can change the culture, because then when I am a grandparent, but when you're grandparents, you will know that that's your job.
Yeah.
So we're going to rely on you to do that now.
That's right.
No pressure.
That's the mission.
No pressure.
So death is not just something that happens to us and those we love, and something to fear. It's something where we have a role, a job, something to do. And if we accept and get to know our role, it might help us and help others. And there's a role for all of us, from young to old and everything in between. And it changes as we live, because we change, and our relationships with others change. We are all in this together. Here's Zane, Shaniqua and Phil from our crew, and their guest Jackie Bailey, who is also a funeral celebrant. They're having a go at not being afraid and being in the conversation together. Story 3, Stars.
What made you want to go for this type of work?
To do this kind of work, it's almost inevitable that something personal, made you want to do it. So 2 things really. My dad died 20 years ago now, and his funeral was good. He was religious, so we did it in church and stuff. But I didn't like the funeral directors. I thought they just wanted kind of more money. They kept doing things like, which casket do you want? Look at these more expensive ones.
They were just there to get paid and get out of there pretty much.
Yeah, and I really didn't like that. And then, but I was 20 years old then, so I wasn't really thinking I'm going to go fix that. But then my sister, who had been sick for a long time, she died 5 or 6 years ago now. And her funeral was really good, again in a church because she was religious. And the funeral directors, they were good, but they were really expensive. And I was like, this is ridiculous, paying so much money and all they do is stand there in a nice outfit, basically. And they even got the song wrong.
Paying so much and they can't even get the song right.
Yeah. So I was like, well, by then I was, obviously much older, and I thought maybe I can make sure that people have a good funeral. It's not the kind of job that is fun, but I always feel like it's such a privilege to be there with people, and you hear all these stories and you're just allowed into people's lives for this little bit of time. And it's an important time and a sacred time.
How do you feel after you do one of those things?
What I do, I feel pretty drained. I always make sure I've got some chocolate.
Chocolate helps everything.
I know, it's I don't know if you guys have seen the Harry Potter movies with the Dementors, and that you have chocolate straight after a Dementor attack, and it's just spot on. It is a really special time, and it's hard when you're not religious to know what to do at that moment and make it special. I don't know if your families are religious or not, but my parents were, but most of us kids aren't. So it's what do you do?
My grandma's funeral, we got roses to place as she was getting lowered down into it, and I found that as a good way to not let it go, but say my final goodbye.
Yeah.
When I was there and I got handed the rose, I kissed the rose and just placed on it. I'm not really religious, but every now and again I'll sneak in a little sneaky prayer or something.
Yeah.
Just every now and again, I don't know why I do it. It's just I'll be in this feeling and all that, and I'll just be well, see if it works.
Yeah. I came across this poet, Mary Oliver. She's an American poet. She says she prays with her whole being, when she goes through a walk in the forest or whatever, and she's that's a prayer. The way I feel right then, that's a prayer. So I think that's a nice way to think about it.
I remember when I was really, really little, I got told about reincarnation and all that sort of stuff. So I just thought that was what would happen when time comes.
Isn't that a beautiful idea?
Even if you don't believe in the actual, I'm going to come back as an ant, the reality is that in a way that is what happens. All the bits of us that are part of the universe, or the atoms, they don't go away. Like, it's only our consciousness that stops existing in that way. But even if you're burnt or you're buried or whatever, all those atoms go back into other things.
Yeah.
Shaniqua, what do you reckon? Do you have like a view of what might happen after you die, or how you want to be buried or anything?
Well, I don't really have these conversations much, but I once got told from my mum that when we pass away, we become one of the stars, and I sometimes look up to stars and see if it's true or not. And sometimes I think that what if I'm going to be up there one day and just watch the world, watch it grow. Some of my elders passed away, and I thought that maybe they're up there too. Some of us Indigenous people, we get told different stories of how we pass away, so some Indigenous stories are different from others. Our culture is like a really big culture. We mostly go to funerals that might be a little bit closer to us, so we'll attend to that funeral. But if we don't attend to some other funerals, we get filled in on what happened at the funeral and all that.
Like when I was 6, like everyone was kind of drifting apart, and like because it was my grandma on the dad's side of the family, she actually said that if she had to pass away to bring the whole family together, she would. And when she passed away at her funeral, the whole family was there, like everyone. And then like on the day, I just sat there thinking, because I was there when she said it, and I was just sat there thinking, I was like, you did it, like Jesus, everyone's here, no one's arguing and all that, everyone's just spending time together, enjoying everyone's company and all that.
It is actually a gift to us that people who are older, like nans and pops, when they do die, because we all need to understand death at some time because it's going to impact us. But that's like their gift to us because they allow us to experience that, to come to our own terms.
I don't think I actually cry that easily at funerals, but I still get sad. Like some people might find it more emotional for them to handle, but most of us learn how to control how we feel.
But if you lost control, that'll be okay.
Yeah, that'll be okay. It depends on how hard it hits you.
When I got told that my grandma passed away, I sat there for a bit, like thinking like it can't be true. Like I was just with her like the other week, like I just seen her. Like surely it's not true and all that. As like the days went on, it sort of like kept hitting me like that, oh, maybe she is. And then like come the funeral, like it really hit me. And I was like, damn, like my best friend pretty much is like gone. What do I do? Like I didn't know how to feel, didn't know how to act. And then like when we went in for like the actual ceremony, like my dad, my uncle, my granddad and all that were carrying a casket out the door. That's when it like fully hit me. I just burst into tears. And like I didn't stop for a good like half hour, 45 minutes.
No, I always tell people at a funeral, you might be feeling all sorts of things. Like some people might be feeling sad and some might be feeling angry and some might be feeling numb and some might be feeling relieved because that person had been sick for a long time and you kind of feel a bit guilty but you feel relieved that for them. Or you might be feeling happy because I don't know if you ever had that experience, but after my sister died, a couple of days later, it was really a very strange sensation of just like euphoria or something. It was really weird. It was like her spirit was free or something. I don't know what was going on, but I just felt so happy for her, and then I felt sad again later. So I just say you can feel whatever you want because that's what we're here for.
Like it's sadness and happiness kind of mixed together.
And also just being overwhelmed. It's like overload.
You're just relieved that all the pain has gone away. You won't get sick. Once you start talking about funny stories of all the memories that you've had with that person, you start to feel a little bit happy. Just like a little bit above the sadness that you walk in with. You start to feel a little bit joy. It actually is like a little bit of a good moment to have memories, stories, some stories you might not know of.
In a way, the feelings that we get associated with when somebody dies, they are similar feelings to what we have when lots of other things happen in life. And actually to know that you can come out, like even over a very short period of time and go, no, I can move forward, that's actually like a great gift as well.
It's like a surreal feeling, like you don't want to believe that they're gone, but...
You literally can't believe because your body doesn't know it. You're like, what? They're still
like
in
I
the
was
world
hanging out
me.
with this person, like not even a couple months ago, and now like you won't, like you can't talk to them, you can't like touch them, hug them or anything.
Or when you're at some place that you used to be together or something, that's always a real shock, like afterwards when you first go back to those places. And feel like you have to create new memories in those places, otherwise it's always like the sad.
It's like the feeling when you can't feel their warmth, or once you get used to their warmth, like you can't really let go of it. But sometimes you have to tell yourself that this person is still there, but you just won't see them or feel them anymore.
I feel kind of relieved, like I was nervous when I came in, but I feel like relieved and like kind of happy because I've met other people who think about these things too, and you talk to me about them, and I always feel better after I've talked about death and funerals.
Like even if they do pass away and like they're not there like physically or anything, like you still think about them and you're still like carrying on their legacy by talking about them and all that sort of stuff. You're not forgetting about them, like you're just carrying on what they started pretty much.
Amazing, mysterious thought.
If you've enjoyed listening to our podcast, you can support us to keep making more stories by going to Beyond Empathy's website and donating. You can make a one-off donation or commit to supporting us regularly. Every bit helps a lot. It's an easy site to find, www.be.org.au. That's B for Beyond and E for Empathy, so be.org.au. And even if you can't support us with money, you can really help us by spreading the word. Tell your friends, colleagues and families to listen. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Like our posts and share them. You know what to do.
And if you want to have a conversation with the young people who've created Parting, we're also telling a bunch of our stories in what we're calling podformances. Podformances can be live, virtual, or both. You can even host one. You could ask us to come and present at your school or for your team meeting, your conference, your event. Our young stars can appear live or virtually, or both. Tell a few stories, and have a yarn about grief, death and dying, and whatever else comes up. Just get in contact via our website. The people who made today's podcast are Drew, Zane, Phil, Daniel, Chris, Simon, Shanice, Lily, Melody, Emma, Alice, Sharif, Brianna, Gemma, Jay, Shaniqua and Elias. The music you heard in the stories is from Chris D'Souza, Phil Okerstrom, Damien Mason and also Kevin MacLeod. Special thanks to our partners, TAFE New South Wales Wollongong Screen and Media and Southern Youth and Family Services for allowing us to use their amazing studios. Beyond Empathy has received funding for the Podcasts from the Edge from the Australia Council for the Arts, Create New South Wales, Zurich Australia through the Z Zurich Foundation, Coordinaire, Southeastern New South Wales Public Health Network through the Australian Government Public Health Network Program, the Australian Government Department of Social Services under the Families and Communities Program through Barnardo's Australia, and also the Tony Foundation. We would love to hear from you. Send us a message about our podcast or make a comment. Tell us a story. You can send us a message via our social media pages or via the website, whichever is better for you. Next time on Parting, we'll have a story about a group of kids who call the reclusive lady who lives on their street a witch, until an adventurous chain of events make them change their view. We'll honour a boy's wish, and we'll talk about when people who are younger die. Catch you then.